is begun, and we'll switch over to main. Hello, everyone. Oh, it would help if I put the full screen. There we go. Hey, right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Daddy Chats Live. Here I have Ellie and Lucie from Roman Found and Tripp Ainsworth. Starting from Ellie, do you guys want to introduce yourselves and then some of your links?
Yeah, so I'm Ellie from Roman Found, and me and Lucy do it together. So you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. There's a platform. We're probably on it.
And Lucie?
Yeah, other half of Roman Found, and as Ellie said, find us on all good platforms.
And Tripp, we'll finish off with you.
I'm Tripp. I write books. I paint stuff. I'm here.
And of course, you all know who I am, the guy with the mustache who is always fighting off a ban from TikTok. The glorious stuff. So today, the main aim for today, as you guys have known, as from the title, is to discuss our favourite ghost stories, some of our personal ghost stories, and to get to the bottom of, are ghosts real or are they some other phenomenon, which I suppose would still make them real, just a different phenomenon.
Well, I mean, the phenomenon of ghosts, or the phenomenon of people seeing ghosts, is absolutely real. The question is whether they're demons or spirits, or some just weird wiring we have in our brain that makes us attuned to seeing things that aren't there.
There's much talk
we
about
do see shit.
suggestion.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot about that. Like people are more likely, if you go into a place that everyone's like, oh yeah, I saw this and this and this, and then everyone else is seeing the exact same thing. I mean, I'm still not touching Ouija boards. Don't care if that's power of suggestion. I'm still not trusting Ouija boards.
No, because even if that is power of suggestion, you're suggesting that your mind go jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
And the thing about that though too, not so much ghosts, but goblins or Bigfoots or whatever. That could be one of the big things for that. Like, say, you're, I don't know, you live out in the woods or whatever, like most people did until I don't know, about 110 years ago. And you have some little kids. Do you tell them, hey, don't go out running in the woods, you might get eaten by a bear or fall off a cliff? They're gonna be like, oh, cliffs are fun, bears are cuddly. Or you say, there's goblins in the woods, don't go out there, so your kids don't go accidentally get eaten by a bear or fall off the woods or fall off a cliff, and they grow up thinking there's goblins in these woods.
There's a very famous story in Scotland. It's one of my favourite supernatural stories of the tale of the Gilly Doo, which is the sort of reverse of the goblins in the woods, where so the story goes that this young girl was. This is on the blurring the lines between ghost story. In fact, I've already gone on to a complete tangent. This is how I derail it. So there's a place in Scotland called Gilly Doo. No, Gairloch. Sorry, I'm confusing the actual the being with the place. But there's a place in Scotland called Gairloch, and a young girl, like 5 or 6 years old, was out in the woods one night playing. She got lost deep in the woods. She obviously just sat down crying. She's a kid. She doesn't know what to do, and then she just sees this nice voice and just goes, "Oh, are you lost?" And then it's a blue guy dressed in all leaves and stuff. And he leads her out to the forest, and then she, obviously being a little kid, goes off and tells everyone, there's a blue guy in the forest. And of course, at this point in history, everyone's very, very not suspicious, superstitious. That's the one. And
Superstitious.
Yeah, and she and obviously they go to hunt the Gilly Doo, but they can never find them. And so the story is that the Gilly Doo disappeared, but it's I bring it up because it's the complete opposite of goblins in the woods. It's a nature spirit that helps you, which I think is
a helpful ghost.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean my ghost stories. My ghost stories are all very, very scary encounters, as we'll see as the show goes on. But do you guys want to bring up any of your ghost stories, or you got any favorite mythological ghost stories or anything? Guys?
I mean, one of my personal favourite Roman stories comes from when we were doing the Roman tour. And on the Roman tour, we went to this place in York, which is called Treasurer's House. And it's this beautiful townhouse that's in York Minster. And but it's the basement where there's the really spooky ghost story. So it's about Roman ghosts in particular. Do you know the one, Ryan?
Yeah.
And then So we were like, right, cool, we're gonna go down, we're gonna see a Roman ghost. Except when we got there, we weren't allowed in the basement because there was like this infestation of mold, and apparently like even staff weren't allowed to go down there anymore. So we were banished from the basement. But the story goes that in the early 50s, there's this apprentice plumber working down there, and I think his name was something like Harry Martindale or something like that. And he's doing some work in the ceiling in Treasurer's house. And they've recently discovered that there's a Roman road that runs directly underneath the basement of Treasurer's house. And whilst he's working up on this ladder, he hears these strange noises coming from the other side of the wall. And then as he turns around off his ladder, he falls slap bang off the ladder because he sees, I think the first thing that appears is a man walking through in a plumed helmet. And then next is 2 legionnaires holding the standards. Then a whole Roman legion marches through the cellar in front of him. And then, but the thing about it is that you can only see them from the knees up because they're still walking on the Roman street level, which is about half a metre below the floor.
That's that's one of my favourite stories. When I was looking through the Roman ghost stories, specifically when I was researching that a couple of years ago, that's the like apparently York, outside of Rome itself, has the highest concentration of specifically Roman ghost sightings.
Yeah, and that's an interesting story too, because like from what you can tell about it, they don't seem like it's an intelligent haunting. It would be like more of a residual energy type thing, which the residual energies I think are kind of a funny thing because like they could go down the road of like these are just spirits that are like stuck in time somewhere and they don't know that they're, you know, repeating the same action over and over again. Or it could be like there's some bump in the waves in the time-space continuum and you're in a certain spot and you're not seeing ghosts at all. You're getting a brief glimpse into something that happened in the past.
Yeah, because like they didn't see him, they didn't try and do anything with him. All they were doing was doing their march, probably their daily march that they did every day up and down that Roman road.
Yeah,
and that like does remind me of what you said. Is it like a warp in the fabric of time?
Yeah.
Because there's quite a lot of, I don't know if it's like there's certain places in the UK where other people have seen like glimpses into the past of like shop fronts and streets that appear as if they are from like the 1950s or like earlier, and then they'll go back like another day and it's just like a modern street.
Yeah.
So they've actually gone into like the shops like it would, and everyone's like it was like the 1950s, and then it's sort of like this phenomenon. Which I don't know.
There's one thing. There's this one thing that sticks out from the story is that when Harry's describing the Legionnaires, is that he describes every detail, like even like chin straps, everything, like down to such a minute detail that he might as well have been looking at like all that remains of a Roman soldier.
One of my
and also with the stories though too, my belief in what they saw changes based off of when they told the story. So like if someone saw that today, I'd be a lot less inclined to believe them as if that ghost story came from before Google existed, and they could be like, "What do Roman soldiers look like?"
Yeah,
this because you hear stories now, and it's like, "All right, yeah, maybe," or maybe you fell asleep watching the wrong documentary on YouTube or the History Channel or something. But way back in the day, it's like, well, to know what that person, entity, or people back then would look like, I would almost have to be some type of historical scholar that specialized in that period, or I don't know, like been to the right art museum to see what these people actually look like, right? Because like even if you look at art, like you'll see a lot of say biblical art, of stuff that happened 4000 BC or something, but everybody's dressed like 200 AD Romans. And it's like, well, Abraham didn't look like friggin', I don't know, Julius Caesar. Abraham looked like some dude in a robe.
One of my favorite details from that story is as well, like when I first looked into it, they know some of the stuff we know about Roman armory now has changed and updated and falls more in line with his description than it did when he first reported it.
Yeah, because that was one thing that baffled people at the time, was how accurate his description of these Roman soldiers were. And the specific point about only seeing them from the knees up as well. Like, who would have thought to only describe them from walking on the Roman street level?
Yeah.
Mm.
Because that, again, that's something niche that, unless he had gone out at that point in time to libraries and studied hard, like now obviously, yeah, it does get more difficult because it is easy to spend the two or 3 weeks before you have your sighting to go on Google and then like figure this stuff out. But
Right.
the further back you go, especially, I think that's why we have such an enamorment with like Edwardian and Victorian era ghost stories, because they are much. But then again, Victorian ghost stories tend to all follow very similar patterns.
Well, the thing about the Victorian area, though, is like that's when horror started being really big in literature. So things started being more spooky in the zeitgeist around then, anyway, just because that's what people were consuming and producing and enjoying.
Becoming part of their popular culture.
Right.
Well, I mean,
But then on the other hand, before Harry had it experience, they'd already found the Roman road in the cellar. So it's like, was that part of the power of suggestion?
I mean, you could. I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it. When I was like, when I had Account Daedalus on last week, when we was like digging into the Enfield haunting, which we both came to the conclusion. As much as I was trying to defend it so much, and I was like, I can't. But the main thing we looked at was obviously the monetary side of things. So if you were looking at it from a negative standpoint, could he have been paid to say that stuff to generate tourism? There's always that sort of chance.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true, because Treasurer's House does currently, apparently, well, when there's not mold in the basement, run a ghost tour of the basement. And it's a National Trust property. It's not cheap to get into.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
like, National Trust properties. I mean, I not to play favourites, but I do prefer English heritage. But like, especially when you're paying a lot more to get into these places, you need more to convince people. And the YouTube algorithm specifically has taught me this, that if you have something supernatural going on, you're a lot more likely to get clicks than you are if you're just doing a regular piece of history.
Well, yeah, no, because people are interested in that. Like, regular history, it's like, all right, so here's a couple paragraphs from a book. I can go and look at it, and bing, bang, boom, I've got the entire experience. There's no questions asked except for, did this guy say, hey, go this way? Or did he say, hey, effing go this way? And like, that's really all the mix-up you get. But you throw something spooky into there, and then you get that element of the unknown where your mind gets to fill in the blanks for the rest of the story, where at that point you almost get a unique experience, tailored just to you, because your mind is the only mind that's going to add these elements that weren't explicitly stated in the story to make it that story.
But then if it was made up and he was paid to sell that story, where did he get the accurate descriptions of a 2nd century Roman soldier, and not just one, but like a whole legion of them?
That's true.
I've heard this story before, but I don't know when this story was, so I can't.
So it's the 50s, this one.
Oh yeah, no. So that one he would have to have a friend, or
Yeah.
have just like spent a lot of time in a library.
I do lean towards, like, whether or not he saw like something supernatural or like time warp, as we were talking about earlier. He definitely saw something, which was there's a lot of these stories where you have to admit, like, I'm currently researching WWII, and there was a guy called Tomas in the Orkney Islands who claims one night he was walking home when he saw the WWII chase behind him. Now, if you believe his story, while even I as a person who's very much into the supernatural, have to go to WWII, which is a human whose torso is fused into a horse, and then it's all skinless, and it basically just plagues the Orkney Islands because it doesn't like people. That's its entire existence.
Worse centaur. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do take that you believe the story, there is one common theme that the one common thing we have to accept is people are seeing something, and I think that's the biggest key. I mean, my favorite Roman ghost story recently has been topped. It was a York one. It was the one in the pub where the manager left because they stayed down in the pub, and then the ghost appeared. The manager quit the next day.
Was that the Roman bath pub?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was the Roman guy naked?
No, he was in a toga.
No, close enough.
But,
That's the same thing. That's a towel.
The one that superseded, again, I like the stuff that doesn't sound plausible, but kind of is, because there's these weird details. And there was a story I was watching, wartime stories actually, and there's a story of, in Vietnam, an American soldier was on lookout, and a geezer coming up to him, and he was like, "Oh, okay, I've got to challenge him." The guy starts talking in Latin to him, like when he challenges him, and as he comes up, he then realizes it's a Roman centurion, like proper armor, and when you see the descriptions, he's actually able to describe stuff again. Now, the reason I like this story is because we know the Romans had expedition, and I have to preface this is not proven archaeological, there's no historical evidence for this, there is very little to support it. All we know is the Romans sent legions out east to explore and for trade, mostly for trading purposes, and it wasn't entire legions, it was very small groups, and whether or not they got much past Persia is highly disputed. But I like that story because it's that little bit of wonder of like, is it possible that one Roman centurion got thousands of miles away and like passed away in Vietnam? Like the series of unlikely events that had to take place. Now the question is it just an American GI very, very fatigued in the middle of the Vietnam War who's hallucinating something he saw from a book back home, or did he actually see something?
So it's weird that there'd be a Roman soldier there, but what would tip it over the edge is if the Roman soldier's ghost showed up to the, American that's in Vietnam and said, "Hey baby, you got girlfriend Vietnam?"
The fun that it makes me feel swelled that there's probably people in the audience who have absolutely no reference to any of that.
It's all right. This is a British show, and that was an American comment.
Yeah, I only know it because I've seen Full Metal Jacket.
Which is funny because he's English, and that whole movie was shot in London. Like all the Vietnam stuff. Yeah. They brought in trees and planted them near a industrial place or an industrial complex that was getting torn down.
That sounds like a film crew. And so anymore, moving on to the next ghost stories. Moving on to what other ghost stories particularly intrigue people. John, do you want to go for your one? Do you want to go for your one again?
Oh, well,
I just realised when I'm saying that, I can see you and I'm in a different order, so when I'm pointing, it's very different.
Okay, yeah, no, but keeping on track with that, there's one, we talked about it last time, but, I guess now with the panel, it'll be fun to, get other thoughts, but there was a post on an American military base in Okinawa. The post is still there. But, for a little bit of background, Okinawa was, like the first island, I guess really the only island we really took in World War II that was on the Japanese mainland. And it was bloody and brutal, right? But there's a post on the island, and this is, decades after this went on, where you'd have these two guys and they'd, be on post, watching this road, watching the gate. And, a guy would come up in a World War II uniform and ask them for a cigarette. And they'd be freaked out because what's this guy doing here wearing clothes that are 40, 50, 60 years old? And, well, he's got a gun and he's asking for a cigarette. And it's like, all right, yeah, sure. Let me get you a smoke real quick. And they go to grab him a smoke and they turn back and the guy's gone. And then they'd freak out because you have a guy with a gun here and we got to report this. And the whole base would go on lockdown for this stuff. And it got to the point where they eventually just closed the gate and walled it off, so you couldn't come on to base from that area anymore. You had to go somewhere else to do it because ghosts in 40-year-old uniforms kept coming up and asking for cigarettes and then disappearing when you gave it to them.
I'm trying to believe that purely because of the number of people that saw it.
Yeah, and this wasn't a one-time thing. It was over about a decade.
Oh wow.
The last one that I know of happened in the mid-90s, and when I was, where was I? I think I was in Afghanistan when I heard the story the first time, but one of my senior Marines was a junior Marine when that happened to him in 1995 or 6.
Oh, so it's a story that gets passed down through the generations.
Yeah.
Wow.
It reminds
I think
me...
there's always,
Sorry, go on.
yeah, I was gonna say there's always something quite interesting about stories that originate in the military, because I guess these are people that you kind of expect to have either authority or to be making decisions that are critical and life or death.
Yeah, and if you're not sitting around a
Scenarios.
campfire telling ghost stories, you don't just want to drop a ghost story on somebody because that makes you the weirdo,
Yeah. And like maybe you'll end up getting like a psych test or something,
Right.
or like, you
Which
know.
that's the thing. That's a big thing.
I've heard
Because like you can relate, like somebody tells the wrong ghost story, and it's like, okay, this dude's been to combat too much, can't trust him with a gun, you need to go. So like if you say that in the wrong company, you're risking your job.
Okay, so it's sort of like that almost adds like a
Weight
level
behind
of
it.
like credibility
Yeah.
to like or weight to these stories that, I mean, like you said, you have to decide whether it's like your career is on the line if you share your experience.
Right.
But then if there's lots of people seeing it, then you kind of have a collective, like, it's got more
Campfire
collective
assault.
weight behind it.
Yeah.
And a collective conscience from the military as well.
Mm.
Like,
there's so many stories of people, but especially if you look at World War II, the Foo Fighters, like the lights coming up between the bombers on night raids, the amount of people that were grounded until the British started eating their carrots, as we say, or the invention of radar, and people started going, there is actually things flying amongst our formations. Is it the Soviets? Is it the Germans? We don't know. And then the Foo Fighter panic is one of my favorite historical events, and we don't know what it was to this day.
Well, I mean, my theory on that is that was the since you want to censor this a little bit, this was the spicy Germans trying to get their seat early on Operation Paperclip and get out of the country. No, take us, please, take us, get us out of fucking Germany.
Look, we can get out of Germany. Look at the aircraft we have. Well, little tangent, very quickly. There's an actual clip talking about like spicy German technology. The first time they had the jet fighters fly past, and the American and British pilots were like, it's like we're standing still, like it was terrifying.
Yeah, no, and what's even scarier about that, not so much adds scary to the story, but like adds scary to the experience. Or maybe I'm mixing that up. But like that was all caught on the gun camera footage, so you can go on YouTube and watch that. And it's like everything's moving like, and then boom, and then like everyone starts flipping shit, and like dudes in the 40s are swearing, and it's like, oh, dude, like if you're in the 1940s and you're dropping the F-bomb, something's bad.
Freya asks in the chat, have any of you had any paranormal experiences? I can start this because I did tease this when I did the panel. Does anyone else have any lined up?
We do.
Yeah, okay. Roman fans had one.
I've had a few as well, personal ones as well.
Do you want to go first?
But no, I want to hear yours, Ryan.
Okay, I did tease. All right. Okay, so I've had like multiple. We'll ease into this with the nice ones first. So the first one I had, what was not in chronologically, it wasn't the first one. The first weird experience I had, I was walking through the woods when I was in Cubs, and I just remember seeing like this figure that was like the same color as the trees, but walking through them, and it walked past the first series of trees, then didn't appear past the second. Like literally, I was like one tree in line of my view, and it didn't come out the other side. And I started telling people, I was like, did anyone else see that? And of course, everyone thought I was crazy because no one else was bang. Because I was the weird kid who was like, hey, I'm going to look at nature while everyone else is chatting. And I remember seeing it, and I was like, okay, I have no idea. I've since been I've been told it's a woodland spirit and different. I've had different names. There's a couple of things in Celtic mythology that do match up with what it was. I then, when I was at my dad's work once, I remember sitting in one of the back rooms, and like I could see the outside door, and what happened was this thing, like it was a pink thing. The only way I can describe it is it looks like the classical alien from Stargate, little like pink ones from Stargate. I like out the corner of my eye, I could swear that ran past, and I was like, this is weird. I don't know what that is. I partially think I might have imagined that one, to be honest.
So you saw something that looked like an alien from Stargate, and you didn't hop up and go, "Hey, girl, you got girlfriend England?"
It ran away. I couldn't ask it a question. But the scary one, the one that I've been teasing. So this was really late. I'm gonna say it was actually early 2000s because I couldn't have been that young. I think I was about 6 or 7. And at the time, me and my brother had bunk beds, and he was in the top bunk, I was in the bottom bunk. And I remember waking up stirring, and I just saw this like flowing white gown, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I realized there was no feet connected to the flowing white gown. It was just hovering above the air. And I did that like in every horror movie where they slowly look up, and I like, it was this really childish thing where I just pulled my covers up and I was looked up, and it was like it had no arms. It was like the floating cloak. So if it did have arms, they were underneath this cloak. And then it had normal neck and then head, but no face. It was just a plain white, like really pale, like almost see-through. Well, it wasn't see-through. It was really hard to describe. It was like sort of glowing, but not glowing, and also see-through, but not see-through. I don't know if that doesn't make sense, but it's the only way I can describe it. And then it was looking at my brother, and everyone goes, how do you know it was looking at your brother? I was like, it was just the way the face was like aimed at, and it was like it was absorbing information, like it was actually seeing what was going on. And then I'm staring at it in abject fear for ages, like I have no idea what to do. And then it just looks down at me, like the entire face just shifts down. And I, of course, being a kid, just go, nope. And I hid under the covers. And of course, when you're a kid, when you've seen something, normally it disappears after you've hid under the covers because it was just a shadow in the dark.
Yeah, it's not real till you take the covers off. It's still there.
Yep. Took it off, was still there. Did this 3 or 4 times. And then eventually, I don't know why, but for some reason I went from abject fear to calm, put my head under, and was just like, oh, if I fall asleep, it will go away. And it was like I was being told to go to sleep, is the only way to describe it. And then...
So this is an anti-sleep paralysis spirit, where instead of stay up and be scared, it's like, go to sleep. No, stop being scared. Go to sleep. You got a big day tomorrow. We're going to have some chocolate milk in the fridge for you.
Yeah.
Just snap out. Be okay.
But that
just put it on the pillow.
I have one more story that's sort of interlinked, but I'll save that for later. But yeah, that is my big ghost story that is the one
That's really creepy.
The reason it freaks me out is because I distinctly remember 6 or 7 times like coming in and out of the covers trying to make it go away until I just felt the need to go back to sleep.
Yeah, like sleep because you were seeing something you weren't meant to see.
Yeah. I don't know if it was like maybe projecting something or if I genuinely, like as a kid, had no other recourse. Because I remember not screaming for my parents as well, which is weird. Because I used to have really bad night terrors, and so like that was a default. But I just didn't scream. I was like it was like absolute terror, and then calm, and then sleep.
Yeah, well
I've actually done that one before as well, but as an adult, so not as a child. Because like for me, if I'm by myself and I have a ghostly experience, it's usually like 3 things will happen. So it will be like 3 events on different days, usually consecutively. And this is back in Wellington, this is in New Zealand, and I was in a flat in Newtown. It was like pretty old place, really kind of a bit grimy. Probably like a colonial type house. And the first one that happened, so that one of 3, I have to try and remember what they are, but I definitely remember the first one as I was doing my makeup, sat by the door, ready to go out, sort of like where's like a thing like that, doing my makeup, the door right next to me, and then it suddenly just like push close, and you could like hear it on the carpet, you know, when it goes like that, and you hear it on the carpet, like push against the carpet, and it just shut, and I just sat there, I was like, that's a bit weird, and then I actually got up because I thought it was a flatmate who'd maybe just checked on me, and then there was no one there, and I was like, okay, back to doing my makeup, I'm just going to ignore that. Do you know what I mean? Just like, okay, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. I'm just going to keep doing my makeup, that this thing didn't just slam my door shut. And then the second one, I was in bed watching a movie on my laptop. I think my boyfriend at the time was there as well. And then my door was shut. And then suddenly, out the blue, the handle just went like that. And we both like looked over and were a bit like, that's a bit weird. Like, why did the door handle suddenly just go like... So like, okay, just gonna ignore that. And then the third time was I was by myself and I just woke up in the night. and a black shadow just like moved across the room to the corner, like a big, kind of like a mass. I don't really know how to describe it either. Kind of just like a
I've had a very
mass.
similar experience.
And I
Very
did that. I
similar.
literally all I did was just like, okay, and just like put the duvet over my head and just like, I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen and just go back to sleep. And that was like when I was in my 20s, early 20s. So it was like 3 things, and then it stopped. Didn't happen again.
With the shadow one, I've had almost the exact same experience, except for me, I could actually see the mass. The only way I could describe it, it was like a sort of, almost like a sort of Sasquatch type Bigfoot thing, but with like glowing red eyes. And I can remember it multiple times, like being coming in through the open. It's one of the reasons I always sleep with the door shut, because it was coming in through the open door. It was just glaring at me with like such anger. It wasn't like, it was definitely evil, but it was like angry.
Was this where you're living at now?
No, this was.
Oh, because I was going to say, well, it's going to come back now that you talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm going to hear you talking about it.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, wait, what are you saying shit about me?
You called?
Yeah, but that happened. It was a sort of repeat. One time it was like under my bed, because we got rid of the bunk beds, and then like I had like a little office under the bed, and like one time I like saw it come out under the bed. That was the worst one. Sometimes it was in dreams, and sometimes I'd really see it. That was the repeat offender sort of thing. But luckily, I don't see that anymore. Touch wood.
Yeah,
Touch
and the under the bed thing is kind of a funny I don't know, theme shtick thing that happens, because like on one hand, you know, if you're like a little kid, something comes up from under your bed, yeah, that's scary. If you're an adult who lives in a house with someone else and something else comes out from under the bed, that's scary. If you're a teenage dude and something comes out from under the bed, it's like, oh crap, all those socks fucking gained sentience.
This is there is a YouTube moderator somewhere that every time they see your name appear on my lives, it's just like, I'm waiting. Going quick. Actually, Ellie, do you want to do your ghost story?
I mean, well, the only one I really have is well, when Roman found experienced one, and then even then we never really saw one as such. So I think you'll just have to take from this what you may. So we're right. So on our permission, there's at the furthest end of it, which is in between 2 dikes, and it's like really boggy down there. It's very isolated. There's only one lane that gets you down there, and you can't drive all the way down it because it's so badly maintained. You have to kind of abandon the car halfway down and walk the rest, and then walk along a long footpath on the top of one of the dikes to get to this field that we were in. So we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's quite hard to get out of there. It's difficult to get to. So we don't see many people down there. And we're doing a TikTok live, and it's starting to get dark. And the reason we're down there is because we've been uncovering pieces of Roman denarii, which are silver Roman coins. They're badly debased and everything. But we've uncovered about was it about 2.5 at that moment in time, Lucy?
Nothing. Or was it a half broken one?
That's
Half
still really
broken
cool.
one.
That's still really cool though that you're finding those.
Yeah. So we found half a broken one. I think there was like
nothing.
one.
No,
really
I don't think it
grotty
was
one.
at the time. I don't think it was anything significant, because what we found was like the best one, wasn't it? It was like incredible.
So we just found they were all heavily debased. You could barely make out what they were, or what was on them. And we're on a TikTok live. And it's also raining. Been raining all day, I'd say. It's like that drizzle that kind of drenches you. So it's getting dark. It's entering dusk. We've been on this TikTok live for hours, and we haven't found much. Where we've been churning through this one patch where these coins have been coming up, trying to find more. So we've literally been over probably every inch.
Ellie got the timeline wrong.
Yeah, because we're on the TikTok.
The one we found on the live is what made us go back to look for more.
Yeah, but we found one and a fragment first, and then we do the TikTok live.
Trying to think.
Then we find the good one. Then we go back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because we find so on the TikTok live, we've not found much, and like the ground is insanely muddy, like it's ridiculously swampy and muddy. And then as you do on the TikTok live, you're talking to the comments, you're engaging with them, you're chatting to them. So we say, okay, guys, we're not finding much. Is there anywhere that you guys want us to look? So then someone comes up on the comments, like one one comment amidst this sea of comments, and they're like, I'm a medium, and I've just done a reading, and I've spoken to a Roman called Nigel, and he's telling you to go onto your left over to that bush over there, and you'll find something incredible. So we've been digging for ages now, so Lucy's like, all right then, let's take a chance on this. She turns left, takes 5 steps, and then just in front of the bush finds the best silver denarius that we found that whole day. And it's like a beautiful Hadrian coin.
Yeah, the big plot hole in that story, though, is not that the medium said she talked to a ghost, but the Roman's ghost was named Nigel.
Yeah, that is the big plot hole.
Like, shouldn't his name end with an ES or an R? Not a.
I'm gonna Google. Is Nigel a Roman name?
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
It would have been Nigel.
Would have been nice.
Nigellus. Yeah. If Nigellus Sir Maximus told you this, I'd be like, okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
There is a
but like, yeah, so this Roman soldier's name's Jeff.
But yeah, I mean, but then we did 3 TikTok lives that day, and out of all of them, the one where we had the whole Roman Nigel experience was the one that TikTok decided that it wasn't going to save.
It corrupted.
But also with that story though, like the ghost part of it's like the least interesting part of it. Like you're out just like out there finding Roman coins. That's gnarly. That's cool. Oh yeah, there's a ghost here too. Yeah, fuck the ghost, man. Tell me about the coins.
Nigel. Showing us where to dig.
So
yeah, it was just weird though, wasn't it? It was just like
apparently Nigel's a Celtic name.
Oh, Celtic name. Maybe she got it
wrong.
wrong.
I mean, he could have been an auxiliary then at that point, because like the Romans didn't just send armies; they would get the locals. But we'll give you silver to go fight your other tribe for us.
Yeah, that is true.
That actually makes it more convincing though, because that could be like the silver piece he dropped like from pay that week, and he was just like, you know what, I'm gonna share it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's actually I think also the footage corrupting makes it a bit more ghostly though.
Yeah, that was the only live that corrupted was when we found
3.
the coin.
But the footage corrupting wasn't the ghost. That was the government not wanting you to know that there's a ghost out here in these woods, and they want you to stay out here. They don't want you to know life exists.
Down.
That's well, that's a bit like going back to grandiose stories like that's a bit like the Battle of Edge Hill, where the local council was fully trying to stop people from camping out because it's like I think it's the Battle of Edge Hill. Am I getting that right? The largest civil war battle in England. I know the story is that, I mean, I've seen footage of it, and where so you get the parliamentarians and the cavaliers coming in, and fighting each other, and it's like you can see this stuff. It's very similar. I believe you can go to Gettysburg as well for the American Civil War and have a similar experience. But like you actually see the fight, and you can hear like everyone reports hearing the men screaming. And I remember the local council were like, we're banning camping here because like every year loads of people turn up and they're trying to see these ghosts, and it's just getting bad. But everyone I know who has been I mean, obviously everyone, if you've gone, you're going to claim you've seen something. But everyone I know who has been claims they have seen Roundheads and Cavaliers charging each other.
Yeah. Well, this encounter was something that only us and the TikTok people who were on the TikTok live can vouch for.
Yeah.
I think I have to believe it because it's just there's too many details in it as a story that would make it hard to fabricate.
Yeah, like we literally hadn't found anything for like hours. But yeah,
it'd been hours,
hours, and that find was kind of like what made us kind of go back and look for more and stuff. And we ended up finding a few that didn't. Well, not. It was like a little spill.
We found 5.5 and a fragment at total, but we'd only found 1.5 when we found the amazing one that made us go back and look for more.
I remember. Did you also had a story? I remember last time I had you on the podcast before I started doing them live. You have one where you like found something literally at the end of a rainbow. I vaguely remember this story.
Yeah. It's when we like found our gold coin, which
that was spooky as well.
Crazy.
But that's more about Lucie's spooky connection to land.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like my. I don't know what you'd call. I don't know.
Intuition, like connection.
It's a little bit kind of like. I don't want to call it like psychic because it's not quite that. It's like It is more maybe intuition.
Mm.
And then we had the one recently as well at the group dig.
Yeah, at the group dig as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this kind of explains it quite well. So, this is an incident that happened recently, and we were at a rally dig, which is with other diggers, and it's quite like a social thing. So you end up like chatting a lot and maybe not
Makes
doing as much digging as you should be doing. And I'd literally just found this signal, and it was just like the perfect tone. I was like, oh, I really want to like dig this one. But then, kind of as I found it, a couple of other detectorists came over and wanted to chat with me and Ellie. So we just ended up having like a 20-minute conversation just about digging and finds, and we started talking about like what we'd love to find, and something that we hadn't found for ages, and we've only found, is it 1 or 2, Ellie?
We found two half groats.
We're half groats, which is a very specific like type of coin, and we've like hadn't had much for finding them before. So while we're having this conversation, I just keep like checking that signal hadn't like gone anywhere, and I could have like easily just like bobbed it off, and be like, oh, let's move on, do something else, or like just forget about it because we're having a conversation. And then as soon as they left, I was like, okay, Ellie, we need to dig this signal. And the coin that we found was a half groat. It was literally what we'd just been talking about and saying we'd love to find one, and we were standing on one.
And just for clarification, that's not like finding like a copper round or like a 1 cent piece. That's specifically like a penny. I mean, not a penny, but
It's specific. It's a specific denomination of medieval and Tudor coinage that they didn't really make very many of. I mean, in 3 years of digging, we found 3. So they're quite a high denomination. So the currency is mostly pennies and your half pennies. It's mostly lower coinage that you find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a rare coin as well. It's a Edward VI, but of Henry VIII. So it's like a coin that only was made for like a couple of years.
They're only made for 4 years.
So how long were you two start a museum?
We will at some point.
We already have a small museum.
Yeah.
I'll definitely come visit that. If you get a nice museum set up, I reckon you could. That'd be an interesting idea, the Roman found museum.
One day. Maybe an exhibition would be cool. But yeah, that's the kind of weird stuff that happens quite often to us. It's like something weird like that will happen.
But the Gouls are a very similar story because like we had this huge pasture field. The first time we walked in there, Lucie turns to me and she goes, "This is the field that we're going to find gold in." And we didn't find gold that day, or the week after, or even the following visit. It was about a month later it was a really grueling dig as well. We'd been up on the hill, so it was really tiring up there. It had also been raining all day. We were both drenched to the bone, but stupidly we were sticking out there because we're quite addicted to finding stuff, and we don't go home when sometimes we shouldn't, and sometimes we should. And we're walking out the field when a double rainbow comes over and lands in the opposite corner of the field. We both turn to each other and we're like, if that's a sign, then we can't not do it, can we? We can't not go towards the end of the rainbow. But it wasn't at the end of the rainbow that we found it.
It was like it was when we walked back to leave.
Yeah.
So we walked into the rainbow, found a signal. We're like, oh, that's like a cartridge. Like, it's like that. Let's leave. Let's go. And then I heard something. I was like, oh, can we just dig this one? I really want to get. We'd been doing like particular like B-roll shots, and I was like, oh, it's really nice on this grass here. I just really want to get this really great shot of like the spade going in and just like the sounds of it, just like really ASMR. So I just like set the camera up, and Ellie could hear the signal like through the grass, like it was so shallow.
You could hear it on the pinpointer.
A great shot. And then Ellie just like flips the clod over, and there's literally a big gold hammered coin just sitting there, and Ellie's literally like her soul like leaves her body. And then just the sound that she made, I'm just like, that can only mean one thing, because I've never heard Ellie like make that sound ever in my life. And I was like, is it gold? Like just like shaking.
Yeah.
And I'm not even set up for the shot. Like I'm literally filming like the flap going up. I can't even see in the hole or anything. So I'm just like freaking out, like I haven't captured it, finding gold. It was really funny.
But when you started this story, though, with the double rainbow, I thought you were going to say, so we're walking around this place, and some psychic medium said, yeah, there's a guy in a ski mask with an armor light over here singing songs about, England. Okay, let's write that off. His name's Seamus. He says, dig over there.
One of my favorite comments in the chat currently is maybe Nigel modernized his name. That's brilliant. That's my favorite currently. We'll quickly go in because we've been going about 43 minutes now. Time flies when you're having fun. We'll have a look at some of the questions. Here we go. Freya says, I did a ghost tour in York and there were so many stories. That's pretty cool. That's an interesting one.
York's a weird place too, because like, what is it? So like, it's a city now.
Well, it's always been a city. It was
founded by the Romans.
Yeah,
but like the Romans were there, but then also when the Normans and the Vikings were there, that was like the capital of whatever England,
Northumberland,
Danelaw.
Yeah,
that was what it was called. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that was a big city for them too. So it's like been a city for at least 3 different cultures. Granted, it hasn't changed in what?
Well, the Romans
years?
first founded it there because it was such a good vantage point over the local tribes at the time. I feel like it's always been a really strategic point in England's like geography that makes it so important.
I mean, it's mainly been. I know the Romans loved it to launch invasions on the Picts. That was one of their favorite, like, because it was an easy place. You can sit there, you can station the troops, you can feed them, water them, and then they've not got far to walk to what was then the Pictish border. Where they would normally be picked off in the forests using guerrilla warfare. I always say that the Picts were Rome's Vietnam, 100%. Like, they came in there, stormed it, and then are blitzed out by like tribal warfare. Once the Celts realized they couldn't beat the Romans with overwhelming force, that was the game changer, and that was Rome. Rome never similar sort of thing with the Germanic tribes as well, which would eventually be Rome's downfall.
Well, it's a little unfair when you're talking about the Romans, because like if you say like, oh, this is the Americans' Vietnam, it's like, yeah, America's only been a country for like 200 years. The Romans were Romans for what, 2,000-ish of them, so they would have had multiple of
there
them.
Was a
you know,
few, yeah. But I think that's from obviously from a British perspective, that's the story I know the best. The big one would be Teutoburg Forest. Although the Romans weren't soundly defeated at Teutoburg, they did go back and do Roman stuff.
well, you know, I will rebuttal this with considering all the anti-Gothic architecture literature that came out of Italy in the, I don't know, last 2,000 years. I think the Barbarians won.
True, yeah, eventually. Right, question time. Are poltergeists and ghosts different? I'm not sure.
It depends on who you ask, because sometimes poltergeist is just an invisible ghost, and sometimes poltergeist is what is the word? Where you do stuff with your mind.
Aren't ghosts like trapped spirits, and poltergeists are spirits that choose to come through, or something like that?
Yeah, that, or poltergeist can also be like if you just need to go to therapy, but you have extra sensory fucking perception powers, and you don't know that it's your mind opening and shutting the doors. But it's you. It's not a ghost. It's like your own energy doing it. Is one of the theories of poltergeist.
I've heard of people like being able to do stuff like there's they did like spectrograph. I can't remember what the word is. But you know when you put the electrodes on people's head, we've like measured.
Yeah, that shit, except for like involuntary, which. Yeah. That's another one that goes into the, hey, is this real or not thing? Because, like, again, with the whole ghost thing, the ghost phenomenon is real. We just got to figure out if we're crazy or if they're ghosts. But with ESP specifically, the Central Intelligence Agency did experiments on this for like 40 years, and the CIA says it's real. And not to trust the CIA, but if they did 40 years of experiments, they're like, yeah, it's real, then... Yeah. If we're weaponizing it for warfare, it's probably a real thing.
I mean, my favorite, like, we're racer outside. my favorite story out of that, or bit of research, was when they looked at specifically religious ceremonies. They found that the amount of energy coming out of it, like it was measurable, and it was like genuinely like you could see the human mind at work. It's one of those.
Yeah,
There's a
there's
lot
something
more
to that. Like we're not gonna experience it. Like we're gonna be dead in the next. I'm assuming we're all under 40. We're all gonna be dead in the next fucking 70 years. Wherever humanity is in about 200 years, I think is gonna be a really cool thing to fucking look at or experience.
We need to get time travel or immortality, one of the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Denizen TG says, of course, ghosts are real. They're in Return of the Jedi. The King says most ghost stories are urban legends. And then he goes on about say, what do you think about ghost stories where people are on DMT? Which is an interesting one because I've heard some stories that's different.
Well, the DMT thing's kind of funny because like it's a weird story that like everyone goes through where they're on DMT, and it's like, hey, dude, you're having this experience while you're on drugs, so we can only take so much of what you say, at face value. But also, so many people have that experience on DMT to where either it is you're going to a spirit realm where you're on it, or this drug does a specific, not a general, but an extremely specific thing to your brain chemicals when you're on it.
Or you know that's what it's going to do to your brain chemicals when you're on it. So that's therefore what happens because you've already pre-planned that concept into your mind.
Right. It's because also we're all on the internet. It's 2000. It's 23, right? That's what year we're in. It's 2023. We've all watched internet videos about this. We know what to expect when we go into it. It's not like it's the 90s and you think that like if you take a couple puffs of the ganja that you're gonna become like you're gonna assassinate JFK or some shit. It's not like we got like actual like this is what people go through, not what Hollywood says could happen.
I feel like the truest experience are probably the most bizarre ones, the ones that kind of get you in the left field that you don't know, that have nothing that came before them.
There's a couple stories of DMT. Like so, one guy he went on a DMT trip. Had a DMT trip.
Just went on a nice holiday.
Yeah, he just went on a nice little walk, and he imagined like being in this circus, and he met this woman, and he had a conversation and a relationship with her, right? And it was really weird. He was like there for months and months and months, and then she was like, "Okay, you're going now," and he was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, your trip's over. You're going now. You're sobering up." He comes out of it, doesn't tell anyone about it for years and years until his friend in college or a university turns around to him and that says, "Hey, I want someone with me so I'm safe. Like, I'm gonna try this."
Which that's a good move. Like if you're taking some drug, like dear YouTube, I am not condoning the use of drugs. But if you do,
have someone with you.
It'd be a good idea to have someone sober there who you trust not to draw penises on your forehead with a Sharpie.
This is definitely more an American. Actually, no, I
Wait! You guys don't like draw on drunk, passed out dudes' faces?
No, the that bit we do, but the
okay, all right. There was about to be some extreme judgment there.
DMT is definitely more an American experience, I think. But anyways, this guy, his friend, takes DMT, starts tripping. When he comes out of it, he goes, "Oh, by the way, so and so said hi." And he was like, "What?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, so and so, like from the carnival, said hi." And the guy was like, "Huh?" And so he was telling him, and then he was telling him how in the trip she had explained the story, and bear in mind he had never told him this before. And I was like, "That's weird. That's like your mind is going to some other place."
Yeah.
That is weird.
Yeah.
That is like you're closing one door and opening another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is. I was reading up on a site because obviously I've got phobia, so I tend to read up on what consciousness is a lot. It's a weird thing, sort of diving into your phobia a bit. But there was
like does that actually exist, or are we just tricking ourselves into thinking that it exists? Well, and if we are tricking ourselves into thinking it exists, that means it exists, right?
There's a really interesting hypothesis that consciousness itself is like a TV screen. So like somehow consciousness is being beamed into our brains. And I was like, that's really weird. But it's coming from a psychologist, which makes it even weirder in a way. But
because he has the authority to say, "I went to school. I know what I'm talking about. I'm right. People saw this." But on that, I kind of got a two-parter. And this will go into my ghost story, but the first part about people passing out and doing whatever. So this would have been, I don't know, 2009-ish. I'd just gotten back from Afghanistan, and we had this party. Well, not me, but we had this big party, and it was on a Friday, so we thought we were safe. And I don't know if the rules are the same on your guys' side of the lake, but if someone passes out at a party and they have their shoes on, that's fair game for getting the Sharpie out and drawing on their face, right? I don't know if the rules are the same over there, but over here, that's the rule. You pass out with your shoes on, you're fair game. This guy passed out with the shoes on. So we Picasso'd this dude's whole fucking body, right? And he wakes up a little bit early, and he wakes the rest of us up, not going around shaking us, but he's screaming in the bathroom. And we go over there, we're like, "What's wrong?" He's like, I got barracks duty today. So it was he was going to be on guard that day, right? So he's scrubbing all the dicks and fucking boobs and stuff we drew on his face. And he got reamed when he went to go check in for duty because he got all the stuff off his face, but he missed the giant swastika we drew on the back of his head.
Oh no.
This is oh no.
No, but going into ghost stories, because I guess I haven't told my big one. And I told it last time when I was talking to you. So for anyone that wants, I'm going to tell an abridged version. So if anyone wants to know the full story, go watch the other video I'm on. That's a plug. But I woke up in the middle of the night. I'm in the barracks. I just got back from my third deployment, I think. And I wake up, and across the room is this, for lack of a better term, a thing. There's a fucking thing over there. And there's another me talking to the thing. And the other me on the side of the room asks it what its name was. And I remember that it told me, but I don't remember what it said its name was. And then I asked it where it was from, and it said not here. But the way that not here hit is any fucking definition you can think of as here, it wasn't that. Just not here. I don't know if that's here, the building I was in, this plane of existence, the universe, whatever. And then I asked it what it wanted, and it said it was just checking things out. And it stopped talking to the other me on the side of the room and looked at me in bed and said, "Wake up." So I wake up, room's dark, lights are out. Weird nightmare. Okay, cool. Weird nightmare. I need some water. So I get up, and the second my feet hit the floor, the lights turn on and the doors and the windows slam open.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's freaky.
Which, I've got other ghost stories, but most of them I can chalk up to, that was a weird shadow. That was a tree. But that one was oh, fuck, that was.
That is, I don't have this. I mean, I remember last time you told me this, and I don't have even the mildest explanation for that. The bit that really makes it weird is the doors slamming open.
Because the first part is that's a weird nightmare.
Yeah.
A very vivid
I have
dream.
nightmares.
Yeah.
I wonder how connected they are. Because there's so many interpretations. Because you could even see it the being in the dream was warning you of something in your room. Or maybe it's just an interdimensional lizard just wanting to bully you.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it was a lizard. So it. God. So imagine a tall, skinny dude with no hair anywhere. And I don't mean no top hair, but no other hair or anything. No nose, no ears, just eyes and a mouth. And it was wearing this beige schmuck. I don't know what a schmuck is in England. Like a poncho.
Yeah.
Like a beige knitted poncho thing. So I don't know.
Maybe that was the only way I could communicate with you.
I mean, it could have been.
What I might end up
the next few days. So I mean, maybe it prevented me from getting dysentery from bad barracks water.
Maybe. I mean, that could be one way. But talking about communication, this is where I want to end off. Ley lines, which is my favorite, which we touched on very, very briefly the last time Ellie and Lucie are on. Ley lines. What are all our thoughts on ley lines? Because I'm very much a big believer in ley lines. I was raised on the sort of concept.
Oh, but then ley lines is sort of meant to be where metal detecting comes from.
Interesting.
Sort of meant to be where the technology comes from.
Because I know that's like how you get divining rods, like how divining rods started, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, metal detecting is just a rod with a coil on it. It's just a fancy rod.
That is interesting how like concept, which is like ley lines are like one of the most spiritual concepts, how that leads to metal detecting, I think, which makes metal like what you guys do like in some sort of spiritual level as well. Like, which brings me to actually a side question: would you guys ever like to, if you got the opportunity, like to dig around Stonehenge? That's where all the ley lines are meant to coalesce.
Oh.
If you got the opportunity, would you go for it?
No.
No.
And my reason for no is that I'm afraid I'd hit the wrong rock or bone that's buried under it, and then I have to fist fight a bunch of Welsh giants. And I don't know what your guys' fucking stereotype of the Welsh are, but on this side of the lake, we think the Welsh spend a little bit too much time with the sheep, and I don't want to get caught on the wrong end of that.
Yeah, let's not go down that path. Let's not go down that path. I can already see the comment section now. Let's not go down that kind of path. But yeah, if
I don't know. I think some places are too sacred. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would agree with that. That's a very good answer. I mean,
it's very protective. It's not in danger of going anywhere anytime soon.
Mm.
Yeah.
Whereas
like
protecting that we do is on land in danger.
Yeah, and like on the too sacred thing, it's like I wouldn't dig under the Vatican. There are some books I would like to read in their warehouse, but I also don't speak Latin, so like it wouldn't do anything for me. But
yeah. But then if you think about it, I mean, go back to the ley lines, metal detecting, all that metal detectors do is read conductivity in the earth.
It's weird to me how something so scientific can be connected to something so like supernatural.
Well, yeah, because like metal detecting is a weird one too, because you can 150% explain that one with these are the plans, this is how it works. There's nothing spooky about this. This is just science. But also,
this is the supernatural side of things that we're connected to. To finish off, because
we have.
Go.
I was going to say we have a lot of weird coincidences, for sure. When we're metal detecting all the time.
I think there's something about being out in the land that things happen. You just think, wow, how do these things happen?
Oh yeah, as I went through, like when I went through my very hardcore atheist phase, I was like, it was all science. Science is the only thing. But as I've got older, I'm definitely leaning more towards the I think it's very the hubris of youth in me that was very much on that sort of, or that sort of I know everything side of things, and I'm getting more and more to accepting that we don't know everything, and there's definitely more
things with that. Like one of them is to say for absolute fact there is a god and you need to do XYZ, or we are it, there's nothing supernatural. Both of those are extremely fucking bold statements.
Yeah.
The other thing that I kind of think's funny, and you don't get it as much over here, but like I don't know what it's like in English. I have a lot of Irish friends, so this is where this is going to lean into. Where it's like, no, I'm an atheist. There's no God. There's no such thing as angels or demons. You have to stay away from those woods because that's where the fairies are. And like the math just doesn't add up to me on that one.
I know a couple of my Scottish friends are very much like, you don't go to that place in the mountains, you won't come back. Am I sorry, what?
Yeah, which is fine, if you're any type of religious, but when you're an atheist and don't go over there because of fairies, it's like, which one is it, buddy?
It's an interesting look at local cultures, I think.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't have it as much growing up, but I know loads of people from up north and like Scotland and Wales that have had that was how they grew up. Was like, you don't go into those woods. Like, you won't come. Like, stuff will happen. I know, like, a load of Eastern European friends who are like, you don't go into those woods. It's a very,
I think I
Sorry,
think England's lost quite a lot of its folklore, though.
John. I think it's coming back. It's seeing a resurgence.
Mm.
Yeah.
My favorite one to do was the Wendigo, the Woodwoes, which was the British Bigfoot. Because I like when people hear about British Bigfoot, it sounds so silly, but the actual legends for the British Bigfoot are like close to 500, 600 years old.
Wow. I mean, I've never heard of the British Bigfoot, and I've lived in England all my life.
It was recent for me as well. I literally did the video. Like, there's one in Scotland that's known as the Anfield Moor as well. Like, there's multiple sort of Sasquatch type beings that have legends that predate going to the New World. So it's not like you can't say it was. I mean, maybe Destroyers of the Yeti could come down. There's actual. If you follow sightings, there's from Turkey to like the tip of Siberia. There is actually a chain of like Sasquatch type sightings that actually, and it's really weird. It's like follows mostly mountains, which I think is like pretty cool. Supernatural.
Well, I was going to say with Bigfoot, and this is in defense of Bigfoot, or people who believe in Bigfoot.
Me.
One of the two, however you want to interpret this, right? I think that it's really funny that wherever Bigfoot's seen, just say for the sake of the argument, we're going to say fucking Nova Scotia, which is southwest. I'm sorry, Nova Scotia's on this side. Whatever southwest Canada is, right? So like north of the United States, but like over there. The Native Americans all say that it's there. And the white people that live there all say that it's there. But for lack of a better term, the intellectuals that go there to look for Bigfoot from like New York or Los Angeles that like spend 3 days just hanging out in the woods, they're like, yep, nope, not here. I'm going to go back to LA or New York. And that was a bust. There's no such thing as Bigfoot, but but all the locals are there. All the locals say that it's there. All the Indians say that
they don't have the connection that the locals do.
Yeah, and I don't mean to get like super liberal on this or anything, but it's like, well, okay, so the dumb white guy from New York says that it's not there, but the native says it is.
Who'd you trust more? It's the person whose like entire ancestry is part of the land.
I feel like the longer time you spend in the land, and particularly the same land, the more connected you become to it. So therefore, I trust the natives over the.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think it was C.S. Lewis who said this, and I am going to do some extreme paraphrasing here, but he was talking about how there is a way of looking at the earth that we've lost because, up until relatively recently in human history, like you and your ancestors going, 10 generations back, all lived on this same plot of land, living in an area where eating food that comes out of the ground that, was plowed 100 yards away from you, eating animals that were, poached or hunted within, a couple 100 yards of you. And we've lost that, moving to cities and eating food that was, grown in China and brought over here. And, eating vegetables that were, grown in, I don't know, Turkey or Russia or Egypt and imported over here. So we're not eating food that was grown right there. We're not eating animals that like lived here, and we're not living here. We're doing high school here and then going somewhere else for college and then moving to somewhere else where we think we can get a job later.
Yeah, I can see that. But that's as a side note, as we'll finish up. Now, actually, how long are you guys happy to be on? How long have you guys got?
I'm down for whenever, man.
Yeah, you guys
when you're ready.
Yeah. Right. Okay. We'll do one last little bit of questioning, which I was very curious for your guys' thoughts on. What's everyone's thoughts on Ghost Hunter TV shows? How as someone who very much does believe in the supernatural, even I go, this feels hyped up.
I think when anything's televised and there's a paycheck behind it, there should always be questions raised.
I'd agree with that.
I love them, but I also love trash television. So,
and also like some things I feel like won't be captured. or can't be captured because they don't want to be captured.
Mm.
So therefore, they just simply won't be there. And then there's probably the pressure of creating an episode.
Right. Like something has to happen or else we can't air this.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just walking around a dark hallway. Look, it's dark. They said this spooky thing happened. We didn't see any spooky stuff. That's not good TV.
There's not much of a plot beyond that.
Yeah.
Which if you're walking down the dark hallway and then suddenly a ghost punches you from the right-hand side, there's a bit of a plot behind that.
Yeah.
Which is why I loved Ghost Adventures. Because 90% of that show is camera down a hallway. Dude, bro, oh my god, what was that? And then like there's no investigation, it's just them freaking out about it. But again, I love shit TV.
That is ghost TV though, basically. It's just people freaking out over something
Whether or not
that
there's
they've maybe heard.
Whether or not there's substance behind that, though, and an actual story there, like, I feel like sometimes, like, you can't deny that. Whether
Yeah, I
that's
would
what you're
say
being
about
shown.
1% of that is real.
I think that there's only one. There's an Australian comedian called Isaac Butterfield that does a show called Devil's Advocate, and his is the only one I've come close to being like, okay, stuff's going on, because he's uploaded multiple videos when nothing happens, and he goes, okay, this was the bust. I don't like either the story's fake or we just didn't get anything today. But then he has episodes where everything's happening, and it's not like crazy like stuff's flying about, but like the little flashy balls that they use now when like the ghost like is meant to like push them, like they'll start going off. Yeah, and like one episode, they're actually standing in the graveyard, and he goes, oh, like I feel like someone's like touching my shoulder, and they put like this little camera that was meant to capture the electrical signals around you. I don't know the technical term for stuff, but when they showed the camera, there was like a figure behind him touching his shoulder. I was like, see, I get that, because it's sometimes they show nothing happening, sometimes they show stuff happening.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a big trust value with that though too, because anything they put on TV is something edited, and they can edit anything in and out of it. And I'm not saying that they do. I'm just saying it's not too hard to like select, make darker.
Yeah.
I just got like a thought as well. Like, you know how like a lot of the ghost hunting now is using like, I think it's kind of like advanced technology, but some of the ghosts that they're interacting with wouldn't even had torches and like radios and things when they were alive. So how do they know what to do?
But like, where is the ghost from 1995 that pops out and goes, "It's Britney, bitch"?
Yeah, that's true. There's no like ghosts from the like late 90s, early 2000s that show up, is there? That's an interesting one. I think maybe it just takes time to cycle round before you get to become a ghost. Maybe you have to, like, there's a waiting list.
Well,
Maybe,
the other
maybe
thing
they've
is
just been
too,
slowly watching and learning.
Yeah.
And,
Like the
waiting for their
Victorian ghosts,
moment.
they're gonna know how to like, I don't know, turn a radio on or like turn a torch on. They probably never had one in their lifetime.
It could be argued, like, if they've been a ghost for a while and they've seen the technology develop, I suppose. That could be an argument.
Maybe.
yeah. But the other thing though
Watching
too
like
is
their
like,
moment.
you know, I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but like with, you know, that kind of spooky stuff, like a lot of it's felt. Like you get this like weird electrical feeling in you when there's something near, and
Or
you
like the
can't
temperature
measure
change,
that.
right? Like a temperature
Yeah.
change as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, like you can't take a picture of that, and then like
Mm.
it's real easy to be like, well, the temperature here is 95. No, over here it's 32. Why is it different? It's not because you're in front of an air conditioner or anything.
There's no insulation in that wall or something.
That sort of plays into, I think, my one of my last like ghost stories, where like I've had this most of my like I would say from 18 onwards, I've had this where I'll be sleeping and I'll just feel like a breeze on like my neck, and then over time, like I'll be like, oh, it's just coming through a window, there's a vent or something, and then I'll realize that when I move, it doesn't move, and there's no breeze coming through, and it's like I just realized it was like, oh, okay, something is breathing. It hasn't happened for a while, but it's like the reason it's weird is because it's folled me from like location to location, and that's
Because the building's not haunted, you are.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You are.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, we'll finish off there, because we've been going for an hour and a quarter now. which is the one of the only times I've actually kept to the timer. Normally we're like
Unless you don't
4
like
hours
it,
over.
got
Yeah. No, don't put that on footage. No. No, I'd love to go and actually while on that point, thank you guys for all coming on and spending your Sunday evenings chatting to me about ghost stories. Is there any, before we finish off, is there any more ghost stories you want to talk about, or is there any final thoughts? Are ghosts real? Is actually that's the point of the whole show. Is, are ghosts real?
The phenomenon's real,
Yeah.
at the very least.
I'm gonna say a large portion of sightings probably aren't, but there definitely is a good portion that have some substance to them, whether that's time warps or imagination or actual ghosts.
I mean, there's certainly some stuff that can't be explained.
Yet.
Yet.
True.
Which humanity is gonna be really cool in 200 years. I hope.
If we're still here. If
Yeah.
Putin hasn't pushed it back.
On that.
Important.
But on that fun revelation, Ellie and Lucie, do you want to go over your socials and anything you've got coming up that you would like to advertise? Hello?
Hello?
Audio cut out for a
Did my audio
second.
cut out? I said, Ellie and Lucie, is there anything you've got coming up that you want to advertise, or just want to go over your socials?
Ellie?
Well, just if you want to see any cool metal detecting content, be sure to check out our channels. We do a lot of object history, stories behind our finds. There's not a find that we don't find that isn't researched and gets to tell its little tale.
Cool. And Tripp, well, obviously you're going to talk about your book.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, anywhere you want to find me, just go to smokepitfairytales.com. All my links are there. You'll find me.
And I have got all both links to Roman Found and Tripp's links are all in the description as well. So if you want to check them out after the show, feel free to. Before we go, I've got Petro saying I'm working, so I won't be able to watch it live. That's fine. You can watch it back. This has been a very good discussion. I think it's the nice mixture of stories and like, is it real? And obviously the massive tangents that this show is famous for. But yeah, thank you to everyone watching. I hope you all enjoyed. That's not the outro. This is the normal outro. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on, and to everyone watching, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And end.
Dude.